Yain, hain, 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 hain. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, nine, 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 ay, nine, nine. Ay, 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 ay. Nine, 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 ay, nine, nine. Ay, nine, 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 ay, nine, nine. Ay, nine, 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 ay, nine, nine. Ay, nine, 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 ay, nine, nine. Ay, 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 oh. Ay, 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 oh. Ananay, nay, 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 ay, nay, nay. Ay, 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 oh. Ananay, nay, 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 ay, nay, no. Ananay, nay, 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 ay, nay, nay. Ananay, nay, 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 ay, nay, nay. Ay, nay, 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 ay, nay, nay. Good afternoon, everyone. The hour is getting later. Maybe we're starting to feel a headache or a little bit of grumbling, but that's why it's time for Mincha. It's time to sit together to hear the story of Jonah, to celebrate, to welcome the LGBTQ members of our community in confronting with this Torah portion, and to pray one more time the words of our Yom Kippur liturgy. So let's begin with the Ashrei on page 1 of the Mincha Sidor, which should be posted in the chat. Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha Od Yalelucha Od Yalelucha Ashrei Ham Shekacha Lo Ashrei Ham She'Adonai Elohav Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha Od Yehalelucha Od Yehalelucha Selah. Page 3. Tehillat Adonai Yedaber pi Vivarech kol basar Shem kadsho leolam va'ed V'hanachnu nevarechya me'ata v'ad olam. Hallelujah, hallelujah. So as you know, it's our tradition at TBZ for many years now for a member of the congregation to offer a kavanah reflecting on this Mincha Yom Kippur Torah reading and standing up for the rights and dignity of all of the LGBTQ members of our community, to say You're welcome here. Everyone is welcome here. So I'm so honored and excited to invite Gary Cohen to offer this reflection.
A few weeks ago, in her weekly Shabbat message, Rav Claudia told the story of a group of travelers who sailed to sea in a wooden boat. One of the travelers took out a drill and began to drill a hole beneath his seat. The other travelers naturally were alarmed and protested that the hole he was drilling would destroy them all. "Why are you worried?" he answered them. "It's only beneath my seat." The COVID pandemic reminds us of an inescapable truth. We're all in the same boat together. Our physical existence, our bodies, these finite containers for our infinite souls, draw inspiration, quite literally, in-breath, neshama, from the exhalations, the out-breaths, the neshama of others. We meditate on the connection between nefesh, the soul, and neshama, the breath. During this pandemic, we practice pekuach nefesh, we save a soul, by practicing pekuach neshama, by guarding our breath. We wear face masks. We stand apart at healthy distances. Insofar as possible, we stay home. We've learned to use and have come to rely upon Zoom and Facebook Live and YouTube streaming and video recordings to keep physically distant but spiritually close. Physically distant but spiritually close. And now, after many challenging months and with challenges no doubt still ahead, we've arrived at these high holy days, at Yom Kippur, at the Mincha service. I say arrived, but in truth I'm standing in our beautiful but nearly empty sanctuary. The chairs are stacked against the side walls. The room is mostly devoid of people, and I'm surrounded, enveloped, washed by memories. I close my eyes, and in all this stillness, my mind is transported back to my first Yom Kippur at TBZ 20 years ago. It's 2000. I'm working to rebuild my Jewish identity after decades of alienation. The sanctuary is packed. Nearly everyone is dressed in white. Our hearts have just been cracked open during Yitzchar. As the sun begins to set and the intensity and urgency of our prayers begin to quicken, we start the Mincha service. We open the ark, we parade the Torah around the sanctuary, we bring the Torah here to the reading table. The first Aliyah, then the second, and then the Maftir reading, Vayekra, Leviticus, chapter 18, and this verse, V'et zachar lo tishkav mishkevei isha toevahi. You shall not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. It is an abomination. I close my eyes. The sanctuary floor feels as if it's dissolving beneath me, and my mind is transported again. It's 1970. I'm a preteen. It's Yom Kippur afternoon. I'm with family at our crowded, conservative suburban synagogue. I'm a kid. I fidget. But it's the Mincha service, and grown-ups are reading from the Torah. I squirm. V'et zachar lo tishkav mishkevei isha toevehi, an abomination. I sink into my chair, my eyes locked on the translation. I don't look up. I don't look around. I don't want anyone not my parents, not my friends, not the rabbi, to suspect that what? To suspect that what? It's 1970, I'm a kid, and I don't even have the vocabulary, the mind map, the heart map to process the slow, creeping awareness of my being somehow different, that I'm gay, that my life, then just beginning, would be informed, would be instructed, would be burdened, that my life would be injured by this Parsha's description of the emerging me as an abomination. Suddenly, my mind snaps back to TBZ and to this sanctuary. Again, it's the year 2000. I'm 40 years old, a proud gay man, but I'm new to this shul. I'm enthralled by the temple's still new Jubu Rabbi Reb Moshe. I want to love this place. I want to be loved in this place. The Maftir reading has just concluded, "You shall not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. It is an abomination." And then silence. No reflection, no commentary, no contextualizing, no nothing. I look around this room. It's late on Yom Kippur afternoon, but the sanctuary is still crowded. There are families here. There are kids here, kids that I don't know, but more important, kids who don't yet know themselves. And they are listening. They are listening to what we read aloud from Torah and what we don't say in response. Friends, we come to shul, perhaps especially on Yom Kippur, with a hope, a prayer even, that we'll be inspired, we'll be moved, we'll be enlightened by a glimmer, just a glimpse of deeper understanding. We imagine that if revelation happens, it'll come during a quiet contemplation or when chanting an uplifting nigun, or maybe from that still small voice. And so I was stunned. I was stunned sitting here at TBZ 20 years ago, following my first encounter here, anyway, here with this problematic Torah portion, and even more with the total communal silence that followed its reading. To hear in my mind an unexpected song, a song not from the Yom Kippur liturgy, but from 1970, from the year my mind had been transported to a few moments earlier, a song by Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. You who are on the road must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, their father's hell did slowly go by. And feed them on your dreams. The one they pick is the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh and know they love you. We don't get to pick Revelation soundtrack, my friends. Sometimes it just picks us. So, following that first year of Yom Kippur here at TBZ for me, I entered a period of understandable God wrestling and, candidly, a bit of rabbi wrestling too. We've come so far in 20 years, so far, but 20 years ago, the word gay had, to my knowledge, never been publicly uttered in this building. Abomination, yes. Gay, no. In 2000, I already wasn't young, but I was younger. I was 20 years younger. I still had hair. And for sure, I was more strident and more confrontational. And Reb Moshe, my beautiful teacher, my friend, also already wasn't young, but he too was younger. He still has his hair. And Reb Moshe was at an earlier moment in his evolution as a strong LGBTQ ally. Remember, he had just been installed as TBZ's rabbi only a few years earlier, and Temple Beth Zion's transformation from a conservative and frankly moribund synagogue to our vibrant, inclusive TBZ still was in its earliest phase. And so, Reb Moshe and I wrestled, respectfully. We wrestled and we studied and we talked and we talked and we talked and we talked about the inclusion of this problematic Torah portion on Yom Kippur. And after 2 years of talking, 18 years ago, this Yom Kippur, I was ready and Reb Moshe was ready, and we hoped TBZ would be ready for me to offer the Mincha service personal reflection that's now included in our Machzorim. I rose to speak these very carefully written, thoroughly negotiated, and in retrospect, quite cautious words. We won't welcome gay men and lesbians to our congregation, I said, if we run the moral red light that unavoidably is part of a progressive Jewish community's reading of today's Parsha. We must pause when we read this Parsha and speak of the Torah of our lives as necessary commentary to the written Torah we have inherited. For 18 years now, at every Mincha service, a TBZ member has risen to challenge today's Parsha with insight and eloquence and integrity and authenticity and more inclusiveness than I had the awareness to summon in 2002. In these annual personal reflections and throughout the years, we welcome too our bisexual, transgender, queer, and gender nonconforming friends and family members, humanity's full rainbow, to this amazing community. I can't mention every personal reflection, although each has been moving and important. I'm so grateful that Rafi Freeman Gerspan, a proud transgender rights activist, was nurtured by her TBZ parents and by this shul. I was moved to tears a few years ago when Molly Silver's son, Ezra, returned to TBZ from college and spoke about the importance of growing up as a queer kid in a supportive Jewish community. And last year, how amazing, how thrilling, how unimaginable it would have been 20 or 18 years ago to have Sam and Yarden offer their Mincha reflections together as husbands. So much change, so much progress, but Tikkun Olam is not like the weather. World repair doesn't happen around us, we make it happen. As Reb Moshe teaches, we are the fingers of a divine hand, and I know that TBZ's communal fingerprints are all over the progress we have made at our shul, across most of Judaism, and in many parts of our world. Over the years at TBZ, we've evolved a practice of standing during the Vayekra Maftir reading. Our Mincha service leaders sometimes characterize this practice as protest, an act of holy defiance. I get it. I get that. For me, I rise because I want everyone in the room to see who our written Torah is referring to. When we all rise, I see a community of beautiful people affirming that we're all in this boat together. And so during this challenging and unprecedented time, wherever you are right now across the TBZ diaspora, as you watch the recording or live stream of today's problematic Torah portion, I invite you to rise as you are able. Today, we are physically distant but spiritually close. Please rise wherever you are in remembrance of a time just 20 years ago, only 20 years ago, when this sanctuary, this room was packed with congregants. We were so physically close, but through communal silence, many of us were left adrift, spiritually distant. Rise up, TBZ, in solidarity with our LGBTQ family. Rise up, B'al Kol Yisrael, because Black lives matter. And we know from 20 years' experience here, we know in our bones that change is possible if we act to change. Rise up, B'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, because we can vote. We can change our government. We can change the law. We can change hearts and minds. We can change our world. We know we can do it because we have done it before. And we must keep at it. So rise up, rise up. Gamar Chatima Tova, I wish all of us a sweet and powerful new year.
Gary, thank you. Thank you for that really beautiful reflection. And thanks to you and thanks to so many other members of our community, we will no longer be silent. We can't be silent. So let us turn to the reading of the Torah. Let us soak in the words of the Torah. And we'll have a reading from 3 members of our TBZ congregation. But let's first say the blessing on page 5 for reading the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified our lives through mitzvot and enjoined upon us the study of Torah. And now we'll have the reading.
וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, כמעשה ארץ מצרים, אשר ישבתם בה לא תעשו, וכמעשה ארץ כנען, אשר אני מביא אתכם שמה לא תעשו, ובחוקותיהם לא תלכו. את משפטי תעשו, ואת חוקותי תשמרו ללכת בהם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. ושמרתם את חוקותי ואת משפטי, אשר יעשה אותם האדם וחי בהם, אני אדוני.
איש אל כל שאר בשרו, לא תקרבו לגלות ערוות, אני אדוני. ערוות אביך וערוות אמך לא תגלה, אמך היא לא תגלה ערוותה. ערוות אשת אביך לא תגלה, ערוות אביך היא. ערוות אחותך בת אביך, או בת אמך, מולדת בית או מולדת חוץ, לא תגלה ערוותן. ערוות בת בנך, או בת בתך, לא תגלה ערוותן, כי ערוותך הנה. ערוות בת אשת אביך, מולדת אביך, אחותך היא, lo tigale ervata, ervat achot avicha lo tigale, she'er avicha hi, ervat achot imcha lo tigale, ki she'er imcha hi, ervat achi avicha lo tigale, el ishto lo tikrav, dodatecha hi, ervat kalatecha lo tigale, eshet bincha hi, lo tigale ervata, ervat eshet achicha lo tigale, ervat achicha hi, ervat isha uvita lo tigale, et bat bina viet bat bita lo tikach legalot ervata sha'ara hena zimahi v'ishat el achota lo tikach lizror legalot ervata alecha bechayecha ve'el isha b'nidat tumata lo tikrav legalot ervata ve'el eshet amitecha lo titein shechavtecha lizara letomava umizaracha lo titein lehavir lamolech ve'lo tehalel et shem Elohecha ani Adonai.
ואת זכר לא תשכב משכבי אישה תועבה היא, ובכל בהמה לא תיתן שכבתך לטמאה, ואישה לא תעמוד לפני בהמה לריבה תבל הוא. אל תטמאו בכל אלה, כי בכל אלה נטמאו הגויים, אשר אני משלח מפניכם. ותטמא הארץ ואבכות עוונה עליה, ותקיא הארץ את יושביה, ושמרתם אתם את חוקותי ואת משפטי, ולא תעשו מכל התועבות האלה. האזרח והגר הגר בתוככם, כי את כל התועבות האל עשו אנשי הארץ אשר לפניכם, ותטמא הארץ, ולא תקיא הארץ אתכם בטמאכם אותה, כאשר קאה את הגוי אשר לפניכם. כי כל אשר יעשה מכל התועבות האלה, ונכרתו הנפשות העושות מקרב עמם. ושמרתם את משמרתי לבלתי עשות מחוקות התועבות אשר נעשו לפניכם, ולא תטמאו בהם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Thank you to Penina Lahav and Cindy Jo Gross and Flora Bergstein for reading. We'll turn in a moment to the Haftarah, to the story of Yonah, to the story of Jonah. And in this late hour of Yom Kippur, after so many hours and services doing this internal work, we read a story, a reminder that as much as we try to run away from ourselves, run away from God, run away from each other, we'll always end back. We'll always end back with ourselves, even if it takes us through a detour, through the belly of a whale. So let's turn with Margie and Molly to the reading of Jonah.
Molly will be reading from Jonah and then from Micah. I will keep you oriented. She'll start with chapter 1, verses 1 through 3.
Vayehi Dvar Adonai El Yonah v'Amitai Lemor Kum Lech El Nineveh Ha'ir Hagadolah Ukra Aleha Ki Ata Ra'atam Lefanai Vayakom Yonah livrok Tarshisha milifnei Adonai Vayered Yafo Vayimsa Oniaba Tarshish Vayitain Sichara Vayered Ba Lavo Imahem Tarshisha Milifnei Adonai.
And God said, Jonah, son of Amittai, normal man, average man, get up, leave, go. Go far, go to Nineveh. You bring them my judgment. You tell them I am angry. You tell them they have sinned. Jonah rises, fleeing, not forward, but backward, down to Tarshish, down into the boat, down into the hold, down into his slumber. Then the sea rages, a roiling, rolling, churning darkness. The boat bends, thrashes, threatens to break. The sailors cry out in terror, weeping, pleading, screaming, Jonah, how can you sleep? Chapter 1, verses 7 and 8.
Vayomru ishareu lechu v'napila goralot v'neda bishalmi hara'asot lanu vayapilu goralot vayipol hagora al Yonah Vayamru elav hagidana lanu ba'asher lemihara-sot lanu mamalaktecha ume'ayin tavohu ma'artsecha v'emizeam ata.
Ivri, Anochi, I am a Hebrew, I am a believer, I am guilty. I am the one who flees from my God. Throw me into the sea. Verse 13.
V'yaktaru anashim lehashiv el hayabasha v'lo yacholu ki hayam holek v'soer alehem.
But the sailors keep rowing. Ana Adonai, Elna, please Adonai, God of this stranger, please do not destroy us for killing an innocent man. Verses 15 and 16.
Vayisu et Jonah, vayitiluhu el hayam, v'ya'amod hayam mizapo, vayiru anashim, yira gedola et Adonai, vayismechu zevach l'Adonai, vayidru nidarim.
The sea rages, a roiling, rolling, churning darkness. The boat bends, thrashes, threatens to break. Then, with one push and a splash, the sea quiets, perfectly still. finally safe, and Jonah sinks down, 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 down into the water, down into the great fish's mouth, down into its belly. Finally, for the first time alone, for the first time safe, Jonah prays. Chapter 2, verses 3 through 10.
Vayomer karati mitzara li el Adonai v'yahaneni mi beten sheol shivati shamata koli vatashlicheni mitzula bilvav yamim v'nachar yisovaveni kol mishparecha v'galecha alai avaru vani amarti nigrashti mineged einecha ach osif lehabit el heichal kodshecha afafuni mayim ad nefesh tehom yisovaveni suv chavush leroshi L'kitzvei harim yaradati haaretz b'richecha va'ati le'olam v'tam mishachat chayai Adonai Elohai v'hitatef alai nafshi et Adonai zacharti Vatavo elecha tefilati el heichal kodshecha mishamrim havle shav chastam ya'azovu vani bikol todas b'chalach asher nadarti ashalema Yeshuata Ladonai.
Speaking now to the fish, God commands that Jonah come up, spit up and sprawling, up, up, up onto the dry land. Chapter 3, verses 1 and 2.
Vayehi dvar Adonai el Yonah shenif lemor kum lecha Nineveh ha'ir hagadolah ukra elecha et hakriya asher anochi dover elecha.
Now again, God says, Jonah, son of Amittai, normal man, average man, get up, leave, go far, go to Nineveh. You bring them my judgment. You tell them I'm angry. You tell them they have sinned. This time, Jonah runs forward, faster and faster, sprinting and screaming. 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. Verses 5 through 8.
Vayaminu anshe Nineveh belohim vayikru tzom vayilbeshu tzakim migdolam biad kitanam Vayikah davar el melech Nineveh vayakom mikiso v'ya'aver adarto me'alav vaychasak vayeshev al ha'efer vayazek vayomer b'Nineveh mitam HaMelech ugadolav lemor ha'adam b'habehemah ratzon, al yitamu me'oma, al yiru mayim, al yishtu.
The people receive the wild, shouting stranger like an epiphany, like a wake-up call, like a surprising, necessary truth, and they returned with sackcloth and ashes, with apology, with honesty. And God returns too, with chesed, with promise. But Jonah, he is deeply, painfully, soulfully grieved. Chapter 4, verse 2.
Vayitpalel el Adonai, vayomar, Ana Adonai, halosed divari, ad hayoti, ad admati, al kain kidamti, livrak tarshisha, ki adati. Ki atay chanun barachum, erech apayim barach chesed, v'nicham ahara'ah.
Please, Adonai, take my life. It is better that I die than live. And God answers, Oh, Jonah, does it feel good to be so angry? Verses 5 through 7.
Vayetze Yonah min ha'ir, vayeshev mikedem la'ir, vayas lo sham sukkah, vayeshev taktecha batzel, ad asher yireh ma yihye ba'ir. Vayman Adonai Elohim ki kayon vayameah liyonah liyotzel al rosho lehatzil lo mera'ato vayismach Yonah al hakikayon simcha gedolah vayiman ha'elohim tola'at ba'alot hashachar lamachorat vaytach et hakikayon vayivash.
Jonah, walking off east of the city, walking off into the heat, sits sulking, watching the happy city he unhappily saved. God, alternating Hesed and Gevurah, provides a shady plant for Jonah, destroys the shady plant for Jonah, leaving him sweating and angry in the sultry east wind. Now again, Jonah says, Please, Adonai, take my life. It is better that I die than live. And God answers him, You find compassion for the plant you didn't raise? You find compassion for the plant you hardly knew? Should I not find compassion for Nineveh, 120,000 souls, a large city, full of people, struggling to discern their right hand from their left? Verses 10 through 11, followed by the end of Micah, chapter 7, verses 18 through 20.
Vayomer Adonai atachasta ki kayon asher lo amalta bo v'lo gidato shebin laila haya uvin laila avad va'ani lo achus al Nineveh ha'ir hagadolah אשר יש בה הרבה מ12 ריבו אדם אשר לא ידע בנימינו לשלמה ובהמה רבה מיאל כמוך נושא עוון ועובר על פשע לשארית נחלתו לא החזיק לעד אפו כי חפץ חסד הוא ישוב ירחמנו יכבוש עוונותינו ותשליך במסולות ים כל הטותם תיתן אמת ליעקב חסד לאברהם אשר נשבעת על אבותינו מימי קדם.
Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you, Molly, for that reading of the Haftarah. Let's conclude our Torah service with the words of Eitz Chaim Hi on page 14. Eitz Chaim Hi למחזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש ימינו כקדם יין 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 So we'll have time for another Amidah during the Nila service, but let's take a few moments now for silent prayer, for the words of our hearts, for the Tefillah Shebalev, the Tefillah of our hearts, for silent meditation. Adonai Savatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, imru, Amen. Let's turn to page 15 for our vidui section of Mincha. We'll start with Kianu Amecha, page 15. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, slach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu, ki anu amecha, v'ata Eloheinu, anu vanecha, v'ata avinu, anu avadecha, v'ata Adonenu, anu gehalecha, ata chelkeinu, anu nechalatecha, ve'ata goraleinu, anu tzonecha, ve'ata roeinu, anu charmecha, ve'ata notreinu, anu feulatecha, ve'ata yotreinu, anu rayatecha, ve'ata dodeinu, anu segulatecha, ve'ata Eloheinu, anu amecha, ve'ata malkeinu, anu ma'amirecha, ve'ata me'amireinu. Ashamnu on page 16. Yai nai 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 nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai nai 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 nai. Ashamnu, bagadnu, gazalnu, dibarnu dofi. Hevinu, vehirshanu, zadnu, hamasnu, tafanu sheker. Ya ay 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 ay, ya 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 ya, ya 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 ya, Yatnura. Kizavnu, latnu, maradnu, niatnu, sararnu, avinu, pashanu, tsararnu, kishinu oref. Yai, 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 nai, 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 yai, nai, 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 rashanu, shichatnu, tiavnu, tainu, titanu. Ay, 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 yai, dai, 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 yai, dai, 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 dai. Let's conclude our service on page 17 with Sim Shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, yanai nanai nanai yamecha, barchenu avinu kulanu ke'echad, kulanu ke'echad, be'or panecha, ki be'or panecha natatalanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Torat Chaim ve'ahavat chesed u'tzedakah u'veracha ve'rachamim ve'chaim ve'shalom yanananaynanay v'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol het u'v'chol shah Bishlomecha. So Shana Tova, everyone. Gamar Tov. In a moment, we're going to take a short break, and we'll come back together in 15 minutes at 5:45 to join Rav Claudia and Yoni and the rest of the davening team for our Ne'ilah service. And we will conclude with, we'll also be having a community break fast in the community room that will start right after the Ne'ilah service. B'sefer Chaim beracha v'shalom u'farnasa tova nizacher v'nikatev lefanecha Anachnu v'chol amcha beit Yisrael lechayim tovim u'leshalom